So this domain, this analysis, right quick, what we're doing here is just looking at the more markets domain and their infrastructure right now as it currently is today. Okay, and we look at the domain and we look at the IP it's answering from, right? And so we're just looking at the basically the health of the system you're going to be connecting your XRP to.
So
And
that's the whole flow, right? When you deposit, XRP is locked. We use an interrupt solution like Wormhole that goes in there, and then we basically the yield comes from RLUSD on Aave.
Securitized. So it's the first time ever that an asset like private credit has been publicly available on a permissionless blockchain. And we're also very excited as the founder of Drift to announce that we have launched a leverage strategy that boosts private credit yield from 9% to up to 17%. So
Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another CYPRX Well 28 Club research video breakdown. In today's video, I want to thoroughly dive into more markets via some controversy that has recently aroused surrounding their launch of their newest product, XRP yield generation product, launching on their mainnet. And I want to just give a thorough overview of some red flags that I personally found that until the red flags that I found are brought into fruition, i.e. being either exposed or getting some more confirmation, then I'm going to definitely classify this platform as high to more medium risk. And I'm personally not going to be deploying my XRP on this platform until some clarity surrounding some questions that I personally had are answered in better detail. And we'll go over those in today's video breakdown. So there's obviously, of course, speculation surfacing on the internet on this platform. We're going to read thoroughly through an individual's post here via some red flags that they found. Then I want to go over in detail the co-founder's response to all of those red flags. And I just want to give an honest review of this platform, not bashing it, not saying it's good, not saying it's not necessarily bad. Taking a look at the team, taking a look at some other research that you guys can embark on your own time, and I'll drop all those links in the chat for you guys. But I don't want to take a biased, opinionated look on this platform. I want to just thoroughly show you guys some things that I found, some things that I like, some things I don't like, and just give you an honest review. So that way in this community, in the CYPRX Well 28 Club, we're not just jumping head on into these yield strategies that are going to be brought to the market for digital assets like XRP. I've told you guys in previous calls, we need to be very careful. The DeFi ecosystem and the XRPL, albeit the XRPL is battle tested, these protocols that are being built on the XRPL are not. And so it would behoove us to be patient. It would behoove us to do our research and to do these types of deep dives as a community so we can protect and preserve our wealth, continue to participate in other well-mature DeFi ecosystems while we wait for the XRP DeFi ecosystem to mature, give it some time, allow the TVL to increase, allow these questions that we have on these protocols answered so that way we're not just rushing into them and getting scammed and rug pulled. Again, why it's so important to be a part of a community like this one here. So this is going to be my take on more markets. Obviously, of course, more data and more information could surface after this video, which again, if it does, we'll cover it in later updated talks. So starting here, so that way you guys have the correct X profile to follow. You got Moore's Markets XYZ. They have a golden check mark. You can see right now, out of time of recording, they have about 48,000 followers, and their website is directly in their X profile. So that if you guys want to go to the website yourself, you're more than welcome to come straight here and click, so that way you're not clicking on any fishy or scamming links that may be surfacing out there. And you can see their headline says, turning idle tokens into productive assets, earn yield while staying on native chains. Introducing their XRP Earn account, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Our first yield product is now live. Over $2.5 million already deposited, which is very interesting because that is a substantial amount of TVL. It does meet our requirements in TVL that we need to see before we gain confidence in order to enter into, a yield generation position. But again, there's still some other uncertainties that, in my personal opinion, need to be answered before I would ever move forward on this platform. They claim that you can earn up to 5% APY on your XRP. We're going to take a look into that because I set up a test account, and we're going to take a look at the UI at the end of this call. So I'll show you guys the test account, what the platform looks like on the inside, and you guys can just, take a look at the UI yourselves while we're on this call. I'm going to have Carlton. He just said on the call earlier he doesn't mind doing a cybersecurity analytical check on this platform. So I'll definitely be interested to see what things he comes up with after running the website. On the back end for us, Carlton's been doing a great job giving us these reports, whether or not these protocols or platforms are medium risk, high risk, or low risk. So again, if you guys have a protocol, you guys have anything that you want checked out, obviously, of course, respect Carlton and his personal time, but I'm sure that he doesn't mind when he does have the chance to go over the platform for you, doing an analytical breakdown on the risk profile for whatever protocol you're taking a look at. And so hopefully everything comes back clean, everything comes back medium to low risk, and it gets a grade A, so on and so forth. But we'll be waiting for that moving forward, and you guys can pay attention to that inside the Discord. All right, so Altan Tutar, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He is the co-founder of More Markets. You guys can see him over here on LinkedIn. This is that gentleman right here, co-founder, CEO of More Markets. If you go down, you'll look at his credentials. His previous experience coexisted with core contributors at Near Protocol. He was advisor at Imperial Blockchain Group, worked full-time at the Near Foundation, and then a couple of other credentials here, and went to Imperial College in London. So he is an individual that does exist, does have some credentials, nothing absolutely substantial or mind-blowing in my personal opinion. But he is a person, right? Nonetheless, he's not some fake random, guy on the internet. He does come from a previous background and experience in Web3 and crypto. So I try to pay him my respect, and not just bash this platform or his, what he's building due to lack of education or not understanding what it is that they're trying to attempt. So giving him the benefit of the doubt, reading his post here, he said, "It's finally happening. Today, we're launching More Markets XYZ on mainnet with our first flagship earn account, the XRP Earn account. This is the first ever on-chain XRP product with yield sourced from Ripple's own stablecoin, RLUSD, through protocols like Aave." Just to go in and double check that, you always want to make sure you confirm things that they're saying. You can see that right down here, RLUSD does exist on the Aave platform with a TVL right now of about 316 million. So maybe this is where they're sourcing some of the yield from. And hopefully, again, that becomes more transparent as time moves forward, because obviously, of course, people want to know and they need to know where the yield does come from. More Markets XYZ's vision is to open up yield strategies that have traditionally been accessible only to the wealthy and hedge funds. We chose XRP as the first asset because it is beloved by retail investors. It currently lacks native yield, and it represents a user base that has been largely underserved by the growing world of DeFi. I agree with all of these points. We designed the app to be as simple as possible. You can log in using your credentials via social media. So you can log in with X, you can log in with Facebook, you can log in with a couple of other different social media credentials. And then you can also log in with your Xamin wallet. Now, today I chose the Xamin wallet with my test account for my Xamin wallet. Obviously, of course, again, not financial advice, but if you guys are going to go out and choose to use this platform, always take precaution. Test it with a test account that has no attachment or direct connection to your XRP on a completely separate phone or device where your XRP has never had or been in connection with. And then obviously, of course, if you're going to do it with the social media route, do it with the test social media account and not your actual social media account. You don't want to be logging into these platforms with your email, giving them anything, giving your email, none of that stuff, as best as you can, right? If you can avoid doing those things, giving out your personal credentials like that, or a phisher or a hacker, if it does turn out to be a scam, not saying it is, but if it ever does, you don't want to be cooped up on this platform with all your primaries. Okay. So I'm just, again, trying to give you guys insights on how I access this. I opened up a test account on Xamin wallet, funded it with a small amount of XRP. It was like 2 XRP or whatever, because I think it's 1 XRP to open up the account. And then boom, connected that test account to this platform. So we'll go over that at the end of this. So those are 2 ways that you can access the app. right? You can connect social media credentials or you can log in with the Xamin wallet. Once logged in, all you need to do is ramp up funds and deposit into your XRP account. Traditionally, these steps would require 3 to 4 different front ends to swap, bridge, and deposit, but More Markets handles it all in a single interface with one button, thanks to partners like Near Protocol and Wormhole. So you can see some other major partnership announcements there, Near Protocol and Wormhole. Wormhole, we already know, trusted and integrated, or at least starting to be integrated into the XRPL. So maybe a trustworthy partnership announcement there, again, if it's real, right? I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but this is, again, just this gentleman's post. Opening XRP strategies to retail is just the beginning. We're already working on several more products, some designed to generate yield on, staked assets, others targeting yield not yet available on chain. Crypto remains the best vehicle for unlocking financial opportunity, especially for those historically excluded from the privileges the wealthy take for granted. I'm excited that More Markets will play a role in that, in changing that. And then again, it goes into this deep thread. I'm not going to take the time to read this thread, but go in, read it yourselves. After this call, I'll drop all these links so you have them yourselves. Continuing to go down the rabbit hole. All right. So this is that gentleman's post. I don't know who this guy is. Daniel, CEO of the XRP. I don't know, CTO of Eminence. I don't know any of this stuff. Right. So again, this is just an opinionated post. And from what I read, but valid points nonetheless. So I'm going to read it and then I'm going to rebuttal it with this gentleman, Alter, who replied to each of these things. And then just again, continue to go down the rabbit hole via some other things that I found. So this gentleman, Daniel, said here he had 5 minutes to take a look at the website. And here is what he personally thinks. Number one, I never heard about them before. That is, of course, debatable. Well, obviously, of course, we can't look at that as a red flag because maybe it just didn't come across his feed, because there's a lot of protocols and things that are being developed in this space right now that even I don't know about. And so we have to assume that other people, again, sometimes being in the dark because of what else they're looking at, might not have come across his feed. The XYZ domain doesn't seem to be a good fit for such a product, but again, this is debatable. The terms of service are on a GDoc that's not publicly available, as the doc permissions are wrong. The PP on GDoc as well, there's no real company info. Support is only via Discord, it seems. There's no clear indicator of who is running this. Again, do you see how like this alone right there lets me know that this dude that made this opinion didn't really do enough research, because I've already shown you guys who is in charge of this, and it's this dude right here, Altan Totar, right? So I'm not saying that this gentleman, Daniel, is wrong, but that's why you want to make your own conclusions and come to your own perspectives, because, this is easily you can find out this information very easily. They just say More Markets Labs Holding Limited. What's the jurisdiction? It also talks about the jurisdictions in which they operate in. I found that directly on their docs page. Do they have a license for custodial services? Can't find one. Where exactly is the company located? What's the registration number? Where's the yield coming from? And how is it generated? That is a very important question. They're mentioned to be audited by industry leaders. Where are the audits published? On Halborn's website, for example. I can't find the audit. Their deposit page is so effed. The QR code isn't even scannable. I haven't tried that yet, but maybe we'll in this call. They're using unique accounts, which means every account needs to be activated. This makes it also impossible to verify the claim participant balances are real, and you can't reclaim your activation. If you deposit now, you can't get your tokens out until the current phase ends. That is something that I personally highlighted and red flagged during my analysis, which I'll go over in just a second. The product on the page says the deposit will raise your potential earnings by up to XXXX in a year, but is nowhere to be explained. And the 3.5% APY, not sure if that's changing with the higher deposit, but side advertises 10%. That's still less than the max APY you could get on Nexo on the next highest tier. So anyways, this is just this gentleman's post. Let me mute you guys. And so he said, I wouldn't touch this with the 10-foot pole. This screams lunacy, right? And so again, like I mentioned to you guys, I personally have seen some red flags on this platform and will not be depositing my XRP into this platform until my personal questions are answered. But out of respect, I have to, again, play the devil's advocate, because this dude, Altar, did rebuttal pretty much everything that this guy said. So reading Altan's reply to everything that the dude Daniel said in his post, we can see, starting off, Altan said, thanks for this, Daniel. I will break down all of your concerns and questions one by one so that everything is clear for the XRP community. Number one, I never heard about them before, but this is of course debatable. So he puts the Daniel's post at the top and then responds to it at the bottom. We are a team of engineers from Near Protocol and IBM, bankers and traders from Deutsche Bank, Standard Charter, Nomura Bank, and worked in other crypto companies such as Coinbase and Fireblocks, which is true, right? Because if you come over here, you can see their full entire team of everybody that's on, building this more market. So here you can see this gentleman, Yash Parikh. If you come down here and look at his credentials, he's right now the chief of staff at More Markets. He was also a strategic officer at Fireblocks. He was an analyst at Coinbase. He was an associate at Fidelity Investments. And you can do the same for all these people's credentials. Everybody who's on the team for More Markets was easily findable, and they do exist, which again, not necessarily saying that it proves validity on their behalf, but they are real people and they do have valid credentials. So I'm not going to go over all those people in detail. I did, however, pull up all their LinkedIn profiles to give you guys the opportunity to go thoroughly through it yourself. So you choose to do that. But I do have everybody on their team and their LinkedIn profile. Now, this gentleman here, very interesting to say the least, George Daninis. You can see, he was an individual on this panel discussion up here. But something that I do pay attention to is who I follow in my network, who follows other people. And someone who is and has very valid credentials in this space, who follows this dude on More Markets, is Loretta Joseph. Now, if you don't know who Loretta Joseph is, I've covered her in previous video breakdowns. She writes legal legislation for the digital asset and Web3 ecosystem in the APAC region. She has been publicly addressed as one of the leaders in the Web3 ecosystem for writing legislation, and she has written multiple laws into existence in the jurisdictions for which she is responsible for. And she follows this person, Georgie Denise. So again, not saying that that solidifies More Markets or, shows that this is a platform you should use, but it just does go to show that these people do exist, and people that have trustworthy credentials in the space, like Loretta, have mutual connections to this gentleman here, George, who is, if you go down, head of DeFi at More Markets. So I'm just, again, trying to play devil's advocate and look at both sides. This could be a platform that ends up working out. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not, but right now I personally wouldn't touch it until more clarity comes into fruition. But still, again, just showing you guys both sides of the argument, right? So to continue, Alton said, the XYZ domain doesn't seem to be a good fit for such a product, but again, this is debatable. I understand that concern, and I agree that as we scale, we want to drop markets and secure a .org or .com. That said, the XYZ domain, they are widely used in DeFi, even trusted by reporting platforms like RWA XYZ, which closely works with Ripple. So he rebutted that. I like that, right? Because again, this comment from the dude Daniel kind of just seems more opinionated than actual fact-based, right? Then as we continue, the terms of service are on a GDoc. He said right here, this is very valuable feedback, and we are fixing it as we speak. Support is via only Discord, it seems. Well, he said if you logged into the application and click the support button, it leads you to the support page seen here, and he drops that support page. We will make this a branded form pretty soon. So again, another rebuttal. It seems like Daniel just didn't do his research on where to properly find more support information at. They just say More Markets Labs Holding Limited. This is correct. What is the jurisdiction? We are an international team from different backgrounds. We operate in the United States, the United Kingdom, the Cayman Islands, and the UAE. Do they have a license for custodial services? I can't find one. This is not a custodial service, right? So they don't need to have a custodial license because it's not a custodial service. They are using Near Protocol's MPC service, which is the same technology that powers Fireblocks. They have more than 10 plus decentralized nodes that sign on behalf of the More Markets vault. This is more secure than traditional multi-sig. I really liked that response because yet again, it highlights the ignorance from Daniel, that he even thought that they needed a custodial license and clearly didn't understand that they're not a custodial service and instead are using software and technology in order to do this that trusted partners like Fireblocks are using. Well, obviously, of course, they're not a trusted partner of More, but I'm just saying Fireblocks has over 2,000 trusted financial institutions using their technology, and they're using the same tech here, according to Altan, right? So again, just another rebuttal playing both sides of the argument. Where's the yield coming from and how is it generated? We are going to publish a blog post soon that goes over this in detail, keeping in mind they just launched. So I think it's plausible for us to continue to wait for more, you know, headlines and breakdowns and blogs from this organization, considering that they just launched. They're not just going to dump everything all at once. They're going to slowly drip feed it to use it for promotion and to use it for education as time goes on, right? So we definitely will be looking at that whenever that does drop. And it says we are using interoperability systems that utilize Aave and Term Labs. See it here. And he dropped a link, right? Audited by industry leaders like Hellborn, and where the audits published on Hellborn's website. Can't find the audit. We have gone through 3 audits and a couple more to come in the coming weeks/months. We will push all the audits on our website in the coming days, likely this weekend. So I will definitely be checking back on that to see if there's any updates on the audits. If you deposit now, you can't get your tokens out until the current phase ends. This is More Markets mainnet beta. The reason why we have a period is to build enough liquidity so that way we can generate yield on the strategy. Okay, so interesting, again, to say the least. It's 3.5% APY. Not sure if it's changing with higher deposit. They advertise 10%. That's still less than the max. This is again that rebuttal from Daniel, and he said here, we are building other earned products for the cryptocurrencies, real WA strategies for stablecoins like RLUSD. 10% is set for those strategies. So that's very interesting. Some double-digit yields possibly coming on RWAs and stablecoins, right? Nexo and other exchanges don't tell you what they do with your assets. We are trying to do this transparently. See the image from the app below. You could see that other exchanges such as Binance, Bybit, and others offer sub 1% rates. See the screenshot from CoinMarketCap. And so it's just giving some clarity on that screenshot, right? We understand that DeFi is fairly new for the XRP community. We're here to answer any questions and explain in detail how we can make concepts easier, simpler, and clearer. Obviously, this platform that launched almost a day ago, and we're working 24/7 to fix the messaging and enhancing the system to get out of the beta stage, right? They're all good questions regardless. We will provide those in the FAQ to make things simpler going forward, right? So I really actually respect this dude's response and didn't see any red flags via how he responded. He actually responded very maturely and thoroughly took the time to answer each of this gentleman's rebuttals, which I, again, really enjoy reading as an individual that would maybe potentially in the future like to use this platform if it's one that exists after regulations and on so on and so forth, right? So I'm going to continue to learn about this platform until something goes wrong, educating myself on what they offer, keeping up with the moving tide, not judging them, because why? You can do that if you don't expose your XRP. Being mature and understanding that right now we don't have to go out and deploy our XRP and instead can just keep up with all the new announcements that this platform makes. Maybe even open up a test account and test it out with 5 XRP, 10 XRP. I'm willing to do that. You guys don't have to, but I know my risk profile and I'm willing to do that. And if this platform does get rug pulled, at least I learned how to navigate on a DeFi platform, how to go out and deploy yield strategies on XRP with a test amount, and still furthered my education. So there's no reason for anybody, including this gentleman Daniel, to be idle just because he thinks that this platform is a scam. It could be, but that's why we're going to continue to do our due diligence like we're doing now, right? Sitting on the sidelines and just observing, learning, and digesting the information as it comes out. So I thank this gentleman here, Altan, for his reply. And then this is kind of the things that I found that were a little bit of a red flag to me, right? That I need more clarity on before I consider deploying larger amounts of XRP onto this platform. So it is a platform that I choose to participate in yield generation strategies in the future on XRP. I might not, because there's going to be many platforms out there that offer yield for XRP holders, right? So this might not be the platform. I'll go back to that in a second. Just looking at the security audits, one thing I do want to bring up, it says the security audits have been completed by Hellborn, Sherlock, and Sigma Prime. So you can see the 3 that they did have already. Moving forward, we need to be mindful of these, pay attention to them. And if you do choose to utilize this platform, maybe go check out and read those audits yourself. But I just wanted to bring to light who audited More Markets. And if you actually come over here to the Hellborn website, I briefly touched on this before. They've actually gotten a good review from Ripple. It says here, Hellborn brought immediate value from day one, rapidly understood the XRP ledger architecture, and delivered clear, actionable insights that strengthen the security of our new features. This is from Ripple's Kenny Lay, the engineer manager. So again, just interesting to see a direct review from Ripple from Hellborn audits. And again, maybe it'll speak loudly of More Markets in the future if they do survive, right? coming over here and going back to my post, I said, I've been exploring more markets and had a question that I hoped you could clarify for the community. On the homepage, it states that users stay in full control of their assets, which is a strong and reassuring value proposition for anyone deploying capital into XRP yield strategies. So if you come over here, you can see that directly on their website right up here. It mentions you stay in full control of your assets. But then continuing to read down here, you can see in the FAQ, it says, are there hidden fees or withdrawal restrictions? And it says, there are no hidden fees. Moore's Markets, I keep saying Moore's Markets, More Markets shows all fees up front, and you can withdraw your funds at any time subject to market liquidity conditions, right? That was a little bit of a red flag to me. Then if we come over here to the docs and read the deposit and withdrawals, it says right here, when a positional token holder wants to withdraw their funds from the More markets, they need to put their positional token into the principal chain's vault. The withdrawal request gets into a global queue that is publicly available for anyone to see. The protocol first looks internally to available capital that is not allocated in the vaults to solve the withdrawal request. If there's enough capital, the protocol triggers an in-protocol withdrawal flow. If there's not enough capital in the protocol vaults, or all positions are allocated, any solver who wants to fulfill the withdrawal request can offer what the withdrawal wants and fulfill the withdrawal request. If there is no solver until the time of expiry, withdrawal request gets canceled. I did not like that, right? I did not like that. So to continue my post, I said, however, after reviewing the withdrawal documentation, I noticed that if there's no solver to fulfill the withdrawal request by the expiry time, the request is canceled, which seems to suggest that access to one's assets is dependent on external fulfillment. From a user perspective, this raises some uncertainty. My questions are as follows. How is full control defined within the context of solver-based withdrawals if there's a risk of withdrawal requests being canceled altogether? Because on their website, they say that users are in full control of their assets, as I've shown you guys right here. Then to continue, number 2, yes or no, because this is a yes or no question and it's very simplistic to answer. Are we truly in full control of our assets if there is a chance that we can't withdraw them at any time? So I hope that this gentleman here, All10, can answer these questions. I understand the mechanics are likely in place for deeper liquidity coordination, which he already answered in the previous post that I read. He mentioned that they're trying to expand the liquidity. I don't remember where it's at, but in one of these replies, he mentioned that. But from a user perspective, this introduces uncertainty around access to capital. I'm not trying to be critical, just seeking to better understand the mechanisms to help educate others on how withdrawal timing and liquidity work under the hood so they can manage expectations accordingly. Appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to your insights. And then, of course, as always, I highlighted where I find this information so that whoever's reading can find it themselves. All right. So that was probably my biggest concern, in which for me was like, I'm not even going to test this platform yet with a test amount of XRP until I get clarity on what the fuck any of that means, right? Because even though it's kind of clear right in the details and what it means, I'm like, I need to know more. Like, you mean to tell me that if I put my XRP in this platform, I can't withdraw it whenever I want, that there could be the possibility of cancellation of my withdrawal, then nah, I'm not touching this platform with the 50-foot pole, right? Just like the dude Daniel said. So I need more clarity on that, right? And so I just wanted to bring that to your guys' attention and again, give you my honest review. In their documents, it does mention yet again, users keep ownership of their assets. And so I highlighted that because they continue to reiterate that. But then again, on that homepage, on the withdrawal section, it mentions that your withdrawals could get canceled, which is just weird to me. That makes me feel like I don't have control over my assets. So I'm just wondering why they claim that twice on their docs and on their website. Now over here, shout out to Crypto Eerie. I don't really follow this lady, or maybe I do. Yeah, maybe I do. I don't really pay attention to her content, but I typed in the search bar this gentleman's name, and so it looks like Crypto Eerie might have had a panel discussion with him or interview with him a couple days ago. This is from July 26th, so relatively, oh, actually yesterday. And I haven't listened to this yet, so I want to listen to it live with you guys right now and listen to what this guy says. According to her post, it says, how is it structured? Where does the yield come from? And what is the expected APY? So let's just listen together as a community for the first time and listen to what this dude says. And it's a 2 minute and 40 long video clip and just kind of pick apart what he says here. So just take a second and listen. By the way, I haven't listened to this yet, so I don't know what he's going to say.
Lock the XRP on there. More markets is a decentralized solution. It uses what actually Flare. More markets is a decentralized solution. It uses what actually Flare uses, which is an MPC network. We use message passing like Axelar and Wormhole. When you deposit in the more markets, what happens is that we lock the XRP on the XRP ledger and mint another version like Flare does onto different networks. So you can, for now, we deposit, we mint on Ethereum, but eventually we can mint to Flare or any other blockchain, and that goes into a strategy like Aave on Ethereum. So that's the whole flow, right? When you deposit, XRP is locked. We use an interrupt solution like Wormhole that goes in there, and then we basically the yield comes from RLUSD on Aave. There's actually 250 million RLUSD on Aave. So the yield actually on more markets are coming from those vaults that Ripple Labs incentivizes and puts 10% APY. But since we can't do one-to-one, so when you deposit one XRP, we can't take one RLUSD. Instead, what we do is we take half of that, right? So if Airy deposits 2 XRP, we now have access to 1 RLUSD, which we then can deposit into Aave. And all of this happens in a decentralized manner through from XRP Ledger to Ethereum.
Through the use of smart contracts?
Yeah, through the use of a combination of smart contracts, MPC, and message passing.
Got it. There were some crazy articles out there about percentages in the yields that seem unattainable or at least unsustainable. You want to address that at all? Because it seemed to be a little out there for clickbait, maybe.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Definitely want to clarify that. I think 20% APYs are really unattainable. We've seen some of those yields through other blockchains, but that's not the vision of More Markets. More Markets wants to give sustainable yield sources, and they all come through RLUSD. So we are targeting something like 4 to 5% on XRP, which we think is sustainable in the long term. But 20% APYs are not sustainable. If you see them anywhere, I would question that. It's that these journals they want to get clicks and.
Okay, so I've seen enough. I actually really like his demeanor. I like the way that he answered those questions, and he pretty much solidified the route as to where the yield comes from, which gave, honestly, in my personal opinion, a lot more clarity now where we're sitting at after having listened to that call, right? That's just my personal opinion, and I just showed you guys how that liquidity does exist on Aave. So pretty much, in a nutshell, you deploy, they take your XRP, it's back to 1-to-1. The XRP that they do take, they go out and they deploy it in yield generation strategies and then pay you that yield, right? In a nutshell, I mean, compared to what he just said, right? To dumb it down. So not bad. Just listening to that for the first time. I also, have shown you guys in previous calls, there's a lot of people on the internet, right, that don't do the type of research that we do in the Wealth 28 Club. So they don't understand the regulated environment that is unfolding, where double-digit yields are happening right now on an institutional level in looping strategies in DeFi as we speak, right? And I've played those video clips. Like, for example, we could come over here to the Solana Accelerate Summit that took place. And in the Solana Accelerate Summit, if you go to, because I remember these things, and you have to remember these things because these are the things that people are not finding. They're not researching. Double-digit yields do exist from an institutional standpoint, where for the first time ever this year, double-digit yields can now be accessed by institutions through looping strategies built on public blockchains, right? So listen to this.
Thank you so much, Nick, for also being the one bringing all of us here together. It's been a pleasure working with the both of you on bringing ACRED to Solana for the first time.
Absolutely.
So today is actually a very historic moment. Today is the day that Apollo's flagship credit fund is now live and tokenized on Solana via Securitize. So it's the first time ever that an asset like private credit has been publicly available on a permissionless blockchain. And we're also very excited as the founder of Drift to announce that we have launched a leverage strategy that boosts private credit yield from 9% to up to 17%. So let's dig into that.
Right. So this is again from 2 months ago. So, and this only has 476 views. So think of how many influencers in the XRP community are like, oh, double-digit yields are a scam. You know, don't go and get double-digit yields because they lack education. When in reality, if you come over here to Drift Institutional, a platform that we've discussed and talked about, and you come up here, and let's see, where is it at that they mentioned this? I know it's on here. Let's go to the Drift Institutional homepage. Let's go to Earn and go to the More tab right here. And then you click on Drift Institutional right here. Here it is. Here's their product. Who is it sponsored by? Over $750 billion in assets under management. You got Apollo, Securitize, and Gauntlet. And what can institutions do? It says right here how it works. They can participate in looping strategies. They can mint a cred, convert S a cred, deposit S a cred, then borrow USDC against it, and then repeat and loop the process, right? And so literally these DeFi strategies that are offering double-digit yields to us as retail investors, these institutions can already access it in a regulated manner. It's like people don't understand that because, again, they don't do the same analysis and research that we do in this community, which is why it's so important. Because when these double-digit yield opportunities become available to XRP holders, and there's so many people that sit on the sidelines in DeFi in the XRP community for the next year because they're scared and lack education, our bags are going to be so much bigger, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just saying, it's just a fact. Imagine if for the past 5 years, XRP was going through this court case, we were able to earn 3% on it the whole entire time, where your XRP positions would be at today. Just think about that. And so for me, again, I'm not going out to deploy on these platforms, but when they show maturation, when our questions are answered, and when they can prove stability, which has yet to come, right? I will be deploying on these platforms. That's just me personally. A portion of my XRP that I'm willing to risk, not all my XRP backs, a portion of XRP that I'm willing to expose to DeFi to generate yield. Now, this is not a platform right now that I'm deploying on. This is just my breakdown on the platform and my overview so far on what I've found. So moving forward, I have some video breakdowns and panel discussions of the co-founder here that I found from just recent times, 11 days ago. This only has 22 views from Block by Block Show. I'll drop this in the Discord so you guys can thoroughly watch it. It's about 44 minutes in an interview that just took place. And then this one as well, 2 months ago, only has 30 views. Another interview of the co-founder of More Markets, so that we get way you guys can, gather your own perspective and opinions on this gentleman here. Outside of that, I will continue to drop all these links in the Discord, in the DeFi section, and in the research section so you guys can find them. Now let's just take a look at the user interface real fast. So going on to More Markets, actually, let's start from complete scratch. Because again, remember, you can use 2 different login methods. You can connect via your social media credentials, which I personally don't recommend unless you have a test account or a fake account. Or you can log in through your wallet, which I think is the most secure because you can just be a number on a test account in terms of your wallet address, right? So you would come over here. Here's the website. You click open the app to deposit. And once you do that, it's going to take you to set up and create an account. All right. One of the things that it is going to ask you is it's going to ask you if you want to keep. Yeah. So I obviously, of course, can't go back to the setup window because I've already set it up. But one thing it's going to ask you if you want to create a name that's represented on your account, or you want to display your wallet address. You can see up here at the top of the corner in the left hand, in the right hand. I just named this CYPRX test. Okay. The second question it's going to ask you before you create your account is if you want to implement your email address. You can deny the request to put in your email address, which I personally did. I don't recommend that you implement your email address on your test account until, again, this platform proves that it's a trustworthy platform. The thing that I did not like about the user interface is it gave me a gambling vibe, which I personally don't like. Let me stop. Somebody's drawing on the screen. Let me get rid of those real fast. Okay, so here you can see this is the user interface right now. So when you come on, you can see it takes you directly to this page. Your earn XRP account, your account balance. So this is where you would see your balance, lifetime rewards, current APY, 3.5%, your wallet's available balance. So this is how much XRP I have in my test account. It's about 34 bucks, 10 XRP, right? Nothing crazy. And then it asks if you want to make a deposit. Tells you little things like you can raise your 1 year earnings up to 0.38 XRP by depositing your full balance. So it gives you an insight into how much money you could get with your full balance. Then right here, how to fund your wallet. So there's some little how-tos, see different details, estimate potential earnings. This is something that I did not like. Why? Because it just gives me, again, I've never participated in Munisy. I never had anything on Munisy. I never had anything on Cryptonomy. But those same accounts had this feature where you could like see into the future. I don't like that because I feel like it's like they're enticing people to want to put in their XRP. So you can see it says if you have 5,000 XRP in your balance, how much are you going to get, right? So when you deposit 5,000 XRP to the XRP earn account for 2 years with 4.5% APY, this is how much you're going to get. So, I have an upwards of this amount in my XRP balance. And so it's just telling me how much I would get. Now, I can't put the max amount of my XRP account in this balance, but I just still personally, I don't know why, that just gives me the vibe where it's like lottery. Like it's like showing you how much money you're going to make and this, and that. And I get it for incentives, but I don't know why it just gives me, I don't like the vibes, That's just me though. Again, that's my personal opinion. That doesn't mean that it is or is not a platform that's going to survive long term. That's just me. But again, still taking the devil's advocate route, this could be a good incentive as well to show people how much they're going to get so they can make an executive decision for their risk profile to, calibrate future returns and rebalancing and this, and that. So there's a positive and a negative to this tool. So I will play the devil's advocate to my personal opinion, right? Because some people may like this. Some people may like that you can see how much if you put, for a smaller account, you got 1,000 XRP, how much you could make versus a larger amount. And some people, again, might like that. Coming over here, after you deposit, it's very simplistic. This is the user interface, XRP earn account, your XRP deposit. So it tells you how much you deposited, the dollar amount here, the APY that you're getting. Then you have the deposit and the withdrawal tab. So that's very clear and concise on where you're going to go to add more money to the vault or withdraw. Shows you the lifetime rewards. Again, current APY. Then it tells you in the account details, because there is a cap for this account, according to the website. It says right here, $750,000 is currently in this account, which is 2.3 million XRP. Shows you the TVL. Shows you the percentage of the cap account that is filled. So right now there's only about 40% left available in this vault. And then it tells you your share of the account right here in terms of percentages. So, I don't know what's the cap is going to be at, but if I were to put the remaining amount of the cap in here, it'd probably tell me I have 40% of my share in this account, right? So that's going to be very interesting. And then down here, it says account distribution, and it tells you where they are distributing the yield from. So you can see Aave RLUSD and XRP RLUSD, right? So right now they're getting 100% of that yield from that fund on Aave. Outside of that, that is literally how simple it is. You can see down here, the gentleman mentioned the support tab. That's down here in the right-hand corner. So if you need to contact their support, you got direct access to their support tab here. Their terms of use, I'll click that open in a second to see if it does work. You got some Medium blog posts, their Discord link right down here in their X profile as well. Let's actually click open the term of use and see if it loads for us. Yeah, so here's the term of use. You guys can go through and read thoroughly through it if you choose to do so. Outside of that, That is
Okay, so I'll go back since we're recording. So this domain, this analysis right quick, what we're doing here is just looking at the more markets domain and their infrastructure right now as it currently is today. Okay, we look at the domain and we look at the IP it's answering from, right? And so we're just looking at the basically the health of the system you're going to be connecting your XRP to. And I feel like that's really important. So these reports change over time. They evolve as different engineers come online, different personnel for a company comes online, and they spot different issues in the environment, say, hey, we need to tweak this here, make this better there, right? So this is just a snapshot as of today. And what I found is usually this this post, let me back up. These details are posted in the Discord chat, the Discord channel that talks about the alert opportunities. And so this is again just a snapshot as of today, and those posts can change their data over time. If someone asks, or they go and look at this data later, it may change a bit because they have different infrastructure stood up that looks more secure or less. Maybe there was a breach, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a snapshot right now, and this is what I found. So today, looking at this more markets domain, the answering IP is right here, and it shows it's located in the United States. And but the website, it contacted 45 IPs in 11 different countries across 47 domains. And so I don't usually see that many domains that it reaches back out to. So that's a pretty long list of other sites it contacts, right? But it is what it is. It's trying to coordinate connections to other sites to do their yield aggregation work. So I can understand that. Um, so moving along, usually this platform does not give a verdict usually, and this is just what it's found today. And moving along, I do see that the domain moremarkets.xyz at Qualis SSL Labs, you can scan it here and it will go and look at the current IPs that are answering and do an SSL analysis related to their certificate and how well their ciphers are in the communications between your device and the server, right? But you can see here there's a different IP as reporting here on URL scan that it did a current public scan. So there is some load balancing. I understand that. Sometimes when you request a website, you will get a different IP depending on the load balancing schema. It may even be in a different country, depending on how they have their load balancing infrastructure. So that's the report there for SSL. Web reputation for Cisco Talos unknown. Um, this is where things kind of started to look interesting. The domain has a suspicious TLD indicator flagged, and wherever you want to invest, I get we have different appetites for wherever we put stuff. So I'm just bringing up what's available, what's on um, the reports, and then
Carlton. I know that you
yeah.
don't want to say the name out loud on that location, but could you just zoom in on your screen real
Oh
quick
yeah,
so
yeah.
that
This one,
people watching?
this location says Ukraine. And URL scan says this domain is located in United States. So there's some differences here. I'm not sure why that is the case exactly, but there's just with all these different platforms, when you start scanning, you just kind of have to boil all them down and take a collective approach as to, what is the overall report seem to suggest when we get further down into just what one platform may say compared to another platform. I hope that makes sense. And with this right here, suspicious TLD for the Level Blue Labs, the Alien Vault. This is alienvault.com, Level Blue Labs. Their suspicious indicator is for a TLD, and that TLD is what that means is it's a website domain that has a suspicious top level or TLD that typically uses less common or newly created. It's basically has the stamp of it's kind of one of those new things trying to get off the ground. And I saw that over here with the domain tools, when you look at the age, the domain tools, it says is 161 days old. So it was created on February 17th. So it could be one of those, really legit platforms that they're trying to stand up something quickly and get out there because they see a niche, but it also could be one of those that um opportunistic um kind of approach to making some money, right? So moving along, we're almost through with the domain side, and then I'll look at the IP side. There's no vendors that flagged this domain as malicious on VirusTotal, and VirusTotal just pings a whole bunch of other antivirus engine or scanning engines to get a consensus. And there wasn't a report found on URL void. I found that interesting. And also reverse lookup was not available for DNS via DNS info. And I'm not sure. I've never seen that specifically ever before in my life. So I'm not sure why that is. But moving along, I did look at the domain in the this tool, any.run, and you can basically simulate what it looks like when you go to the page. And this is a recording of my interaction with the site. And you just move your mouse along the edge here, and you just see different things that I went into. And you go slower, you can see that I'm just trying to generate traffic depending on what I click on and stuff like that. So I didn't see anything necessarily bad. It's in the IOC button up here at the top right. You go down and you basically just look for anything that has a fire, like the fire icon next to it. You'll want to kind of pay attention to that. I didn't see anything that looked like it was specifically like really bad necessarily here on the any.run, so I can't call that out. But I did want to bring up the report for the IP. Now, the IP report looked a little bit worse. Hold on.
The crazy part is that I don't see any other community on the internet doing this type of in-depth analysis on these platforms. This is really great insights. And I mean, even if we don't find any red flags now, we could still take it in terms of like the time in which they have birthed this platform, right? Because
Right.
that alone doesn't meet our threshold requirements for anybody that has a more um sidelined approach with assets like XRP. For me,
Exactly.
I need at least a year worth of a platform in crypto to see if they can battle test the waves of crypto before I consider deploying my XRP. That's just me.
True that. Yeah.
You might be 6 months, you might be 3 months, depending on your risk approach. But I need for my XRP at least a protocol to be around for at least a year before I gain confidence.
Right. And that's really what I feel like the devs or the owner of this company, this site, they need to be aware of this. They need to have someone that checks their infrastructure, and they have, these public and analysis department going on. Oh, let's check Social Security. Social Security. Let's check social media. Let's check how is all the things and verify what does it look like when a publicly um, available report can be pulled up like this, right? So I'm going to try to bounce through this real quick. Hey, Kevin, did you want to ask something real quick?
Oh, no, I had a question to ask that what we should ask the devs if Cypher ever talks to them.
Hey, I can barely hear you, bro. Can anybody hear him?
Yeah.
You gotta get your mic checked, Kev. Your mic is jacked up, bro. You might need to change your input.
All right. Yeah, while we wait for him to do that.
Or type it in the chat, Kev.
Yeah.
Uh, Type it in the chat, Kev. Go ahead, Carlton.
Yeah. All right. So looking at the IP that answered, right? So again, we're just looking at the first IP that answered today, and it's this one on URL scan. That domain answered to this IP. And so that's the one I'm going with today because, I could spend 5 hours looking at all the different IPs it may answer to, and I'm not going to do that. Unless I really wanted to vet big time. If I was going to deploy a lot, then I would. But this can give me a really good answer, right? So Cisco Talos OSINT shows sender reputation is neutral, doesn't have web reputation. Here's where things went sideways for me on Alien Vault level Blue Labs. The there's multiple indicator factors. I don't usually see this. Usually you see maybe one or two, and they're usually gray. But this has historical OTX telemetry, meaning there's been historical um, malicious detections interacting with this IP, right? And so we're talking about the IP. Now, we can go very long into this discussion, but I want to just quickly say you can host multiple domain names on one IP. So we can't necessarily link down that this one IP is for sure only related to the traffic happening here, right? Because if you go to similar, you can see there, well, here's the point. There's on this report, it says there's 10,000 plus hits for the same IP, but a different domain. So this one IP has over 10,000 domains on it, right? So it's not dedicated infrastructure. That's the point I want you to hear me say. When I start here having the conversation about a mature approach to investing, where I go is can can the company show that it has dedicated infrastructure for themselves only? If they want to share hosting space with some other provider and be in the, I don't know what you call it, malicious possible soup of what is the internet, and they share their space with IP, with other domain names on a server, if that server gets infected, then it can go sideways and infect other domains on that server. Now, I don't know how they may have it um, isolated to where there's just like some kind of answering device, like a load balancer that is only routing traffic to back-end isolated servers. I can't speak for that. But where I will definitely say I'm not comfortable with this is because they don't look like they have dedicated infrastructure at this point. And it may be because they're new, right? And when they're new domains, this is one of the things that it looks like. Because maybe they don't have enough capital to stand up their own um, domain, to have their own dedicated uh, infrastructure, if that makes sense. All right. So moving on, we see there's intrusion detection systems detections here. There's multiple for this IP, meaning there's malicious traffic being detected in the Alien Vault's analytics related to that IP. All right. And there's 341 out of 343 antivirus detection ratios. So there's some malicious traffic going to and from that IP, right? And so this is literally the part where I would encourage whoever can try to get the owners or the business section of that domain, that company, and ask them the questions. Do you realize your website infrastructure it looks like it's infected, right? So these are the kinds of things I would bring up to them. Going to Virus Total and see what they say. Going across different OSINT reports, we see community members reporting that they have noticed um, different infectious type traffic with that IP, right? And so we mentioned that domain was created it was February. We'll go back to that report real quick. So it was February where that domain was created, February 17th, right? But on this virus total report here, the reports pick up in the community just before the domain was created. So there could have been a situation where, yeah, there's bad traffic happening before the domain was created. But still, it doesn't lend to the fact that if I'm going to deploy such a valuable asset to it, why they can't do the research to get a clean IP to stand their server up on. Okay, that's just me. All right, moving on. This is abused IP database, and they look for reports for an IP and see when there was a recent report. I'm gonna zoom in here. So the most recent report was 2 days ago for this IP, right? It's been reported 8 times out of 7 distinct sources, right? First reported on December 9th, 2022. So it's just not looking good for them. So anyway, it did not show anonymous as far as like a VPN or proxy type of setup. Not really VPN, but a proxy. Um, Scam Analytics shows medium risk for it with a risk score of 26, and just really bouncing through here. IP Void shows it has one detection on it right here, and it does a similar thing where it polls other um, engines for their analysis of the artifact, right? The artifact in this case being the IP. And on Shodan, it just shows kind of like the normal type stuff of a hosting server where there may be multiple host names answering to that IP and different ports opening. So that's the analysis. I give it a basically medium to high risk for this alone. Um, I just want to make sure we see these things. Hopefully they'll mature along the way and use some of their funding to get on a more dedicated, clean infrastructure. And yeah, I'd love to see that happen for them. Yeah, but until then, these things are just concerning. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, really great analysis, Carlton. And again, from the beginning of my analysis and Carlton's analysis, you guys can see that we're not sitting here saying do this or don't do that or anything. We're just doing a general overview and giving our personal perspective based off of data analytics that anybody can gather, right? I did the more surface level overview. Carlton just did the back end overview. And at the beginning, positive, leaning more negative towards the end. Definitely some things to take into consideration and that are concerning, and that maybe even the team for more markets needs to take a look at this more in detail to, build user confidence. Because if we did a user backend check, Carlton, what would you say that this type of scan is? Like if you were to say that this is a type of analytical scan, in a brief statement, what would you call this type of scan, this work that you just did?
Just OSINT analysis for web infrastructure.
Yeah, simple, right? And so, if all of the things checked green boxes that Carlton just went over, it'd build a lot more confidence. So that's why we do these things. Carlton, thank you so much for that brief
Hey,
analysis.
hey, you're welcome.
This was such a great call. Again, considering some of the things that we're going to continue to find out that are coming to light for XRP holders, we have to be careful. We have to be mindful. We have to stay community driven and pay attention to these things, and things that are red flags that other people might find, share. And other things that are good that people might find, share. So that way we can learn, we can bounce ideas off of, and we can grow and we can progress in this space together and really make it out on top. So that is pretty much the breakdown for today. Like I said, I'm not going to go out and deploy on this platform or anything like that. I just wanted to show you guys how we can educate ourselves on these platforms without risking our hard-earned cryptocurrency. We can do our due diligence. We can be patient. We can be hyped up and excited for 3.5% APY on XRP because I know I sure am. But again, not headstrong, not go out and just completely risk our bags, and take an educational, mature approach before we consider investing into these platforms. So